Hi everyone, I'm continuing my Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And I was reading this chapter, I finished it actually on humility and the spirit of humility. And I didn't actually know that St. Patrick is not the original saint of Ireland. I've been reading up on that, but it's interesting that the saints we choose to remember, so I celebrate it as well. I have my little 3-leaf clover, and I have my brooch that I wore yesterday from Mr. Parker, who I worked with in Zimbabwe. I always wear that brooch every year for St. Paddy's Day, and I bought a little cupcake. But it's interesting, the history of products. We don't really think about them when we eat them or drink them. And in his book, John Maxwell talked about how Coca-Cola was actually a medicine. And I decided to read up on that a little bit. So it's made of cocoa and cola nuts, which is where the caffeine comes from. And in America, like in every, or most products I should say, if you taste their products, they put corn syrup into it. And that corn syrup, it's like a drug. It's very addictive. So when you eat things or you drink things with that in it, it leaves you with a craving for more. But originally when Coca-Cola was made, which I didn't know about, it was made as a temperance product. So for people avoiding alcohol, they would drink that. But originally it was a medicine. And it was something that came out of the war period, where people used to use morphine and the cola nuts and things like that to ease the pain in the war. And he made this, and he took it down to his pharmacy, and his secretary mixed it with water, and she got people to taste it. And that's how Coca-Cola came about. So actually we're drinking a medicine. I didn't know that. But if you go to different countries, Coke doesn't taste the same. So our Coke in Zimbabwe, it's not as sweet as the Coke you get here in Canada and America. I think the American and Canadian products are very similar, but the Coke we have at home, and we call it Coke. I know they say Coca-Cola here in Canada, but the Coke we have at home, it's not as sweet. So I think it's that corn syrup that they put into it. But it just goes to show that sometimes the accidents or the mistakes of life can lead to some of our biggest breakthroughs. And that was an interesting thing for me to learn. So when we make mistakes, I think we never know how that's going to transform our organizations. People say you create the life that you want. God rewards the good. You must have done something or been cursed for your life to go the way it's going. But that's not necessarily true. I mean, there's so many things that happen in life that we don't plan for, like COVID. When COVID hit, it took good and bad alike. When job losses come, they affect everybody. Like I've been in my company over 5 years now. Everybody else has got their login credentials. Everybody else did the training. Everybody else did whatever they need to do. I'm still waiting for mine. It's over 2 weeks. And normally it's not like this. Normally, if it's an internal transfer, we don't do any testing. We don't do anything. Like, they just tell us, like, this wasn't your fault. We'll find you another position and just come in on this day and everything will be ready for you. And you do your shadowing and you learn on the job. But everything's different. The world keeps changing and we have to keep adapting. But that's just a simple little example about, you can be the greatest pharmacist in the world and you can take your product down to the pharmacy and somebody makes a mistake and it becomes a carbonated drink. So it was used for headaches, it was used for temperance, it was used for treating all kinds of diseases. And it's interesting, we just drink it like it's a cola. We just go into the store, we buy it, and we have it, a carbonated cool drink. The same thing with Penna Leon's Orange Blossom. So when I went through a difficult time when that investigation into me closed, I started looking at different things because I was in a lot of pain. Like I couldn't even lift my hand up above my head like this. It was painful, sitting down, getting up. I couldn't control my bowels because it was so traumatic for me to be summoned to the police station and to be treated that way. So it took a long, long time for me to get back to normal. I still have anxiety, but it's not like it was then in those first few years. And I say years because even when COVID started, I was still having that difficulty controlling my bowels, messing myself. So one of the perfumes I looked into was the Orange Blossom by Penna Leon's, and I couldn't get it here. I think now they sell it to unique stores in Montreal, but you couldn't get it here. But when that product was created, all of Penna Leon's products are created with essential oils, and they used to use it for women's bodies, like women's treatment, because the oils in that perfume, the Orange Blossom, it's used in psychiatric treatment. The bergamot is used in psychiatric treatment. So the blend of oils that they used to make that perfume are good for anxiety. They're good for when you have your monthly period, PMS, all these things. So my aunt sent me that perfume from America, and she told me, when you need another one, just let me know. I'll send you the hand cream and the soap and whatever. But I found other products, they're not the same. The Molten Brown is not the same, but it's similar. So it's Orange Blossom and Bergamot. Those are the combinations. And Bergamot and Lavender are my other two favorites. But it's very traumatic when you go through something like that. But out of that, I learned how to use different perfumes, different oils, and to help them. And so I can teach other people how to use the oils, how to help themselves, and also to think about what we're eating, what we're putting into our bodies, how that's affecting us. There are certain foods, when I eat them, I notice I feel bloated or I don't feel myself. So I try to avoid those foods, and I try to eat more fresh fruit and meats, like natural products. But a lot of our products here are injected. They're injected with vitamins, or the cows are not fed grass, they are force-fed with corn. And then they cull them and we eat that meat. So it's very different. If you come here from Africa or you come here from other places, like people will say to me, oh, the meat tastes like paper. It's got no flavor in it, and even if you put spices, it doesn't absorb it. I said, well, it's tough, and some of it is battery created. So what you see on the outside about life in North America, it's not really the reality, but we have a lot to be grateful for. I mean, I was quite shocked. I saw the other day that in South Africa, the power outages are just becoming worse and worse and worse. And I've lived through that, so I try to do what I can to help with my volunteering. But I've also reached out to other places, other artists, trying to see if I can get involved with helping them. I like the human rights movement, so I'm hoping that maybe with Sting or Springsteen or Bon Jovi, they've all got foundations and they've all got things that they're doing and that they're involved with. So I'm hoping that something will work out for me there. Because, I have the skills, I know my education, I know what I'm capable of. And it was very disheartening for me, like when I worked initially on my calls in the call center, and I was being told, you don't show empathy, you don't show compassion, you don't use the right words. It was very, very jarring for me, and it affected me. because, in all my jobs, until I started there in Canada, people, that was not the thing they complained about. I never once heard, you don't show empathy, you don't show compassion, you don't use the right words, you don't know how to talk to people. I never heard that once. So I was kind of shell-shocked when I heard that, and it affected me. I used to sit and cry, just like everybody else in the call center. You have days where you just sit and cry because you think, like, do you think you're talking to somebody that just finished high school or that just, doesn't even have a basic education? But we learn and we adapt and we carry on. And there's a difference between humility and somebody shaming you, treating you very badly. And most of us got treated that way on the calls. And you just have to say, oh, well, what can I do? I have to carry on and learn to adapt. But it's very hard because you don't know those people. They don't know you. And yet that's how you get treated. And people say to me, well, they're frustrated. They're calling you for a problem. They need help. And I'm like, sure, I understand that. But really and truly, is that the way people treat each other in America and Canada? Because it's kind of weird for me because I'm not from this culture. And they're like, yeah, that's what you have to expect. So I don't know, that's not, in the long term, like everybody else, I've been applying for other things, hoping that something better comes along where I don't have to deal with that kind of aggravation and verbal abuse and, the constant taking of it, because it takes a toll on you, on your spirit. But I carry on, I learn, and I adapt. And that's part of being humble. And when your Christian humility doesn't mean that you lie down on the floor and say, oh, I'm unworthy. No, it just means that you realize that you are living under God's all-seeing eye in a created world. Today we have cameras and all that, but it's a different way of living. It's a way of life that we have. And so I'm praying that this will be the year that I get my break. I'm praying that this will be the year that I start earning the kind of money that I want to earn so that I can buy my home and travel and do all the things that I want to do. And hopefully continue to make a difference in the lives of others. So I'm hoping there'll be some kind of a connection to the artists that I like. I know Springsteen doesn't come here that often, but his organizations that he helps in America did say to me that, they sent a message in writing to say that if there are opportunities, they will definitely contact me. So that's positive for me. And Sting, I don't know if Sting has anything. I haven't heard back from Sting, but I just have to wait and see. There's a lot of other things coming up. There's a lot of artists, actors, and actresses that are trying to get things going to help in poor areas, marginalized areas. There's hospitals working in Canada as well. So it's not like there's a lack of opportunity, but the opportunities to work in strategic leadership like we did with the One campaign, or to work on boards, those opportunities are hard to come by. So I'm hoping that something like that can open up for me with Bruce Springsteen or Sting, because they were the human rights artists that I followed. And I've put aside the One campaign now. I'm still helping them, but I'm not continuing to apply to them for jobs and to work with Bono and all that, because it's a long, long time. It's a lifetime. Before I even got into helping them in Canada, I was listening to his music and buying his music and part of the human rights movement in Zimbabwe together with my cousin. And, life changes, things change. So there's a different vision that they are aiming for now. And so I'm looking at what I can do. And it's going to take, again, humility, because it's starting over. I'm not just building on things and building on foundations. But at the same time, I know I have the skills to run an organization, to run an office. And so I'm going to take those skills with me to wherever I land up going. And even my supervisors tell me that. Matthew de Michel used to tell me, no, Belinda, you're good. And I used to say, no, I just feel awful. I feel terrible because of the way that they treat me and talk to me. And he used to say, no, you're good. You've always been good. Even on all your other campaigns that you've been part of, you've done well. But I guess for me, the money component is missing, because when you can't make ends meet and you constantly have to go and beg people who are, like my mom is retired, my aunt is working 2 jobs, and you can't get a second job. Like, you just feel really bad because you have all this education and degrees and diplomas, and yet you can't get a job paying you what you're worth. And I'm not the only one going through it. There are so many of us. There are so many educated graduates that we just can't get a break. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, that's the spirit of humility, knowing our products, understanding them, what we're eating, what we're putting into our minds, our bodies, our spirits, the perfumes we're using on ourselves. I was talking to a lady downstairs one day, and she said to me, you're the good witch, right? I said to her, am I? I said, I think I'm the bad witch. She's like, no, you're the good witch. I said, oh, okay. But yeah, you just make light of some of these things. But there are witches in this world. There are warlocks. There are people who are shapeshifters. There are all kinds of things in this world. So when the church accepts it, then they are saints. When the church doesn't accept it, then they are witches, or they are warlocks, or they are, evil spirits. So it's interesting how we frame things and how we look at things and how we learn about things. And I'll keep learning. That's what life is about. And let's see what's next.